The finale to Rocksteady's Batman franchise delivers in some way, certainly, but it cannot be denied that it's not really because of the gameplay or the story here. In fact, it's sort of a small percentage of both, with one not really outdoing the other. The rest that compensates for what feels missing in the game just feels like it's missing. I'm sorry to say. With the addition of the Batmobile finally being accessible, we are able to protect Gotham City both in the air and on the terrain. I was surprised with how stable the car could actually handle itself given its abilities. 2 modes of use, standard mode and battle mode. Even going at maximum speed with the hydraulic enhancements, the driving portion is very stable and makes breezing through the city by the way of streets a fun course. Unfortunately, that's the only half of the Batmobile's abilities that Rocksteady appears to have given a memorable send-off for the franchise. Battle Mode transforms the Batmobile into a make-ready tank at will with the press of a single button. Given the Arkham Knight's artillery that is presented right out of the gate at the beginning of the game, it makes perfect sense for Batman to possess such a weapon. But even having said that, it feels just too dependent on. You will spend most of your time in Gotham City in battle mode in the Batmobile, as numberless enemy tanks will converge you into literal warfare of cannon and machine gun fire. Side missions require the Batmobile's battle tank as well, such as when you're defusing roadside bombs and fighting off enemy resistant tanks, or trying to just stealthily take out the enemy Cobra tanks that can only be destroyed by means of blindside lock-on fire. Hell, you can even fire the car's weapons at enemies on foot, even though the game does its best to convince you that you're firing non-lethal rounds when engaging enemies on foot, trying to remain consistent with Batman's no-kill morality, desperately it seems, it fails to really prove it visually. As nice and refreshing as the Batmobile's addition was to the franchise, it's dependent and mandated on so much to the point that it holds the game back from ending the game and the franchise on a high note. It makes the game far too repetitive for its own good. I might be able to forgive this, honestly, if they added the Batwing into the mix as an accessible vehicle as well. The game's other gameplay mechanics, combat in particular, have been improved on dramatically. And not just in areas that benefit Batman, but also his enemies as well. Enemies can now charge you and tackle you to the ground, lock you into a hole that you can beat yourself out of, coat themselves in electrical beams, whereas Batman has a few new gadgets, can interact with the environment, steal weapons from enemies that he can then use himself, and when it comes to fighting alongside with allies such as Robin and Nightwing and Catwoman, he can switch from fighting as one or the other at will. This would have benefited players gracefully by means of co-op, and Rocksteady had the perfect opportunity to do so here. But unfortunately, you're just switching from one ally to another, and that's really a shame indeed that we'll never seem to have a co-op Batman game. The Riddler, of course, is back for Revenge 2.0, using the Batmobile extensively to challenge Batman's driving abilities, as well as, of course, scattering trophies and riddles throughout the city for you to find. Azrael returns, hoping to succeed Batman in his attempts to protect Gotham City. Man-Bat can be seen flying around the city. Two-Face is robbing banks left and right, and Penguin is smuggling in weapons caches. But the most disappointing side mission has to be the confrontation between Batman and Deathstroke, because once again, the Batmobile's tank is mandated instead of the two brawlers having one last round of hand-to-hand combat. Even on hard mode, there is really no challenge at all from a guy who is a respected and feared melee combatant, reduced to a warfare puppet. After facing him in an Arkham Origins, and going through so many roadside bombs and checkpoints and aerial drones, hyping this confrontation to a boiling point that any high that you acquired from the game for this bout quickly decimates by the time you're driving him back to the GCPD. The two main villains Gotham has to worry about this time around are Scarecrow and the Arkham Knight. I'm so certain, especially at this point in the game's life cycle, that mentioning Arkham Knight's identity would make or break anyone's decision to give the game a go, because the game itself exposes his identity almost immediately, destroying Rocksteady's claim that he was a new and original character. But anyone who's read a Batman comic or seen any animated Batman movie the last 10 or so years will know exactly who's under that helmet, to the point that the game has to depend on Scarecrow single-handedly to coach you into playing, seemingly to forget about it until it's ready to confirm your suspicions. Joker, who was killed off in Arkham City, has a rather large role for a dead man in this entry, used as a psychological gateway into Batman's mental cesspool after Scarecrow poisons him with his latest toxin, exposing just how affected Batman truly was when Joker died. What's impressive the most is how frequently Joker interacts with Batman throughout the game, probably more than anyone else, yet have absolutely no role or stake in the events unfolding. He's more of a conversation buddy, and in some circumstances, a rather nice distraction into justifying some of Batman's near falls from grace. The frequency can't always be a good thing though, as because it is a mental experience for Batman. That leaves no interaction, taking away any development time that Arkham Knight would need to create a better mystique around his character, or giving Scarecrow more game time to truly feel like a threat on his own, even without Arkham Knight's assistance. Essentially, most, if not all, the elements in the game work for and against each other at the same time in Arkham Knight. Much of it could be forgiven if the city was not completely evacuated, giving Batman a lot more incentive to care about the random thugs running rampant left and right on the streets, taking citizens hostages like they did in Arkham City with political prisoners. Batman fights for the city, for the people, yet there's never any people for him to actually fight for here. Just random, uninteresting NPCs that you have to pick a fight with, instead of them luring you into their grasp like they should. In short, everyone, Rocksteady's finale to the Batman Arkham series is satisfying enough when you're not in the Batmobile. Which is rather ironic considering all these years fans have been begging for it to be in the game. But because it takes so much of the game percentage of gameplay design and elements, it holds Arkham Knight back and imprisons its true color and potential of what it should have been. And because of this, I will truly miss this franchise even more. And for what it's worth, with all I've said so far, Arkham Knight is definitely a must-buy for players of the previous entries. And that's honestly not how a Batman game should be. It should be a must-buy for every Batman fan, not just for Batman fans who have played the previous games, I'm sorry to say. That brings me to the grade. My grade for Batman Arkham Knight is a B+. This grade is affected by not only everything I've mentioned, but also because of how rarely the WB leaderboards ever actually load, and the terrible, disgusting PC port that forced the game to be taken off of Steam's listing. When the game is actually trying to tell a story, it's worth your attention and your time, but even then, don't expect to be taken by surprise. Instead, enjoy your time roaming around Gotham City. For better or worse, it'll probably be the last time we ever will for years to come. Until next time, play fearlessly but fair.